is about freaking time. Mitch and I have been planning to do a podcast episode like this one for a very long time. How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew. I'm the founder and one of the analysts here at Angle. You can check out our website for all of our content, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and on TikTok at AngleFantasyBB. Check the link in the description for those below. Also, be sure to follow our YouTube page and subscribe to the channel. We are here today. We are going to start to get our first look at prospects in the 2024 draft class. So what we're covering today is only prospects that are coming or that are currently playing internationally or coming out of the G League Ignite. So we are not covering any NCAA prospects today. We're going to be doing that in the coming weeks here as like a March Madness pregame. So I am joined by my friend Mitch. How you doing today, buddy?
It's going well, man. This is a long time coming. I'm wearing my G League Ignite jersey, Jalen Green, one of the founding prospects of the program. And I really just can't wait to discuss, these upcoming prospects. As you know, part of us, we are NBA draft junkies, and I'm really looking forward to it.
That's right. We've been talking about this, I guess we'll call it a two-part series with the NCAA part coming next. We've been talking about this for quite a while now. I've been looking forward to it, just waiting for the right time to get some draft content out there for the 2024 class. So one of the first things that we should talk about with this class before we get into it, there's a good Twitter quote out there. I don't remember who the account came from, but it was basically saying, you will start to like this class more when you look at how, or when you think about it in the mindset of building players, selecting players that fit directly into the build of your team, as opposed to looking at a star player to build your team around. I think that's seriously what this draft is lacking, except potentially out of the top three. I don't give them that great of a chance, but mainly only the top three of this draft has really any like mega star potential. But there is a lot of good role players in this draft that teams can take to fill a specific need that they have for the right here and now, and that's going to help support their winning efforts. So specific teams that have picks in the lottery, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, is teams I'm going to keep a close eye on, because they are currently a winning team and might be able to address some type of weakness via this draft class that's very heavy in role players. So not to say that this draft class is useless due to not having a star, or mega star, there's no Wemby, there's no Zion, there's no Paulo, guys like that. But there is guys in here who we might see has a very safe floor as opposed to a high ceiling, which those are still guys that are useful, guys that are going to get minutes and see the floor a lot. Mitch, do you have any other comments on just the draft class as a whole before we get started?
Yeah, I'd like to really add that don't really worry about if there's going to be a star or not in this draft class, because in a fantasy perspective, that doesn't really matter. There could be a lot of prospects that provide a lot of steals, efficient scoring, some blocks. Think of this as like the 2022 draft without Chet and Paulo. They were very valuable guys such as Keegan Murray, Walker Kessler, J-Dub, who wasn't, projected to be, a two-way star coming into the league. So there could be some hidden gems out there in this class, and there's a lot to be excited for.
That's right. So much to be excited for that we split this up into two parts. So just another reminder, we're only covering international and G League prospects. Let's get into it.
So first things first, I'll be going over Alex Sarr. Alex Sarr is one of my personal favorite prospects in this class. He is my number one prospect in the 2024 NBA draft class. Alex Sarr is a power forward and center. He has a height of 7'1" with around a 7'6" wingspan. So he does have that ideal size that you want in a modern big. He weighs 216 pounds, and he's actually one of the, I want to say, younger prospects. He's only going to be 19 come Summer League. Alex Sarr has a nice stat set. Right now, he is playing a limited role on the Perth Wildcats, as you can see right here, but he is showing promising flashes per 36, which I'll go into later. So Sarr is shooting 52% from the field, 71.4% from the free throw line, 0.6 3-pointers made, 9.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, 0.9 assists, 0.5 steals, 1.3 blocks, and 1.1 turnovers. So a little bit of background perspective. Alex Sarr previous played with the Overtime Elite program that has produced some, really, promising NBA talent. Think of the Thompson twins and even some of the undrafted talent such as Dominic Barlow. Recently, in this past summer, I was able to watch Alex Sarr live against the G League Ignite, and he was phenomenal in this showcase game. Some notes that I have about Alex Sarr: he's an ideal modern big. What do I mean by that? Alex Sarr is a fluid athlete. He has quick feet, and he moves more like a giant wing than a traditional big. Another thing I really enjoy about Alex Sarr is that he has the tendency to rack up stats really quickly. Per 36, he's averaging 20.3 points per game, 9.2 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists per game, 1 steal a game, and 2.8 blocks per game. I like to think of the league he's playing in as the third best league around the world behind the EuroLeague and the NBA. The NBL is a very, very great league for prospects to move into. We've been seeing it lately with LaMelo Ball. There's another prospect, I believe, Flowers, who might be a potential first-round pick. So they are developing talent very well. So per 36, he is the ideal modern big man. So I like to think of Alex Sarr and compare him to, well, I don't want to say Victor Wembanyama, but he is like a budget-friendly Victor Wembanyama. If you can, draft Alex Sarr or trade for him with a top 50 asset, I think he can really be a great return of investment, potentially be a top 20 asset by the end of his rookie campaign. Also think of Chet Holmgren, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaren Jackson Jr., and even Miles Turner to a lesser extent as a floor. There's a lot of lucrative comparisons for drafting Alex Sarr, and he's someone that you should keep an eye on. Alex Sarr is also a very versatile defender. He is very mobile. He is able to switch on the perimeter and even guard some of the guards. I like to think he can guard positions 2 through 5. He has very great timing and anticipation during the G League Ignite showcase game. Alex Sarr was able to block Montas Buzelis in back-to-back possessions, just impeccable timing and high motor. Alex Sarr also has a developing offensive game. He's not someone that you can really drop it down low and get you a bucket. He has an inconsistent jump shot. He's very mechanical. However, he's really improving with his jump shot, though. So there are signs to get excited for. He's hovering just around 30% from 3. Alex Sarr is more of a rim presence, but that's okay. Look at someone like Mark Williams, Jalen Duren, or Clint Capella. Those guys are still producing potentially top 40 seasons in their prime. However, he has also become a respectable mid-range shooter and a 3-point threat. So hopefully he can develop that and become like a Miles Turner at the minimum. Some of my favorite landing spots are Memphis. So with Memphis, out goes Steven Adams, out goes Xavier Tillman, and in goes Alex Sarr. Alex Sarr pairs well with JJJ to form a modern Twin Towers. And unlike Jaren Jackson, Alex Sarr is a pretty solid rebounder. He looks to crash the offensive and defensive glass. And he can also learn to play winning basketball, led by John Morant and Desmond Bane, to give him free and open looks. Another spot that I enjoy is Washington. Washington is a place he can develop his offensive game and become the centerpiece of a franchise that has no real direction. And his only competition for minutes is Marvin Bagley with the departure of Daniel Gafford. Alex Sarr is projected to be drafted around the 1 through 3 spot, maybe even the 4 spot. Some player archetypes are those skinny bigs, such as like Jaren Jackson Jr. and pre-draft Mo Bamba. So here is our scouting report for Alex Sarr. We want to rate him at a 9 for athleticism, 10 in size, 9 for defense, 6 for passing, 7 for dribbling. I give him a 7 because he's not someone like a Jakob Poeltl who gets the rebound and looks for an outlet to one of his guards. He's able to bring up the ball in transition, which is really promising given his mobility and fluidity. his jump shot's a work in progress, but he's able to kind of stretch from the 3-point line. So I give him a 7 there. NBA ready, he is a bit raw. He's going to fill out his frame. So I'll give him an 8 with the potential of number 9.
Moving on to our next prospect here, we're going to come back stateside. We're going to start looking at the 2 NBA G League Ignite prospects that are at the top of the draft. So there's a couple of other prospects on this team that could be looked at in the first round, but we're going to talk about the 2 big dogs. So first one's going to be Matas Buzelis. He is a power forward, 6'10", weighs over 200 pounds. He has tremendous length and a good frame, filling out nicely. So at 6'10" at this age right now, he can potentially keep growing. He has a pretty good wingspan, but it's not an elite span. He's not going to get a good size rating like the previous players that we just covered, Sarr did. He's actually already bulked up another 15 to 20 pounds from this time last year, which is a great sign. So last year he was weighing at about 185. Now he's coming in at a light heavyweight 209. It's completely not out of the question to think that he might gain another 5 to 10 pounds come like combines, the time of the combine. And so it certainly seems like there's a lot of room for physical growth with Matas, which is a very encouraging sign considering the position that he's going to be playing. I look at him as a great two-way threat. So if we're talking fantasy stats, they're able to produce both offensively and defensively. Obviously, somebody who can produce on both ends of the floor is someone who's going to consistently see the floor, which, you know, for us in fantasy, that's what we want to see. So he looks like he could be a decent rim protector that also disrupts passing lanes with his length, his athleticism, as well as his good instincts and reading. He has he's got good passing and feel for a player of his size. And this is a good, or probably the biggest selling point for him, is his ability to handle and pass for a player of this size. You know, he's starting to get into that kind of unicorn category. He's, you know, close to 7 feet. I think he will hit 7 foot at some point in the, you know, like in about 2 or 3 years here, able to handle the ball, shoot from outside, can still get rebounds and pass, and produces blocks as well too. So that's obviously something we want to see in fantasy. And it also seems like he can handle a little bit of a usage increase too, to be like a tertiary option or a fourth option scoring wise on a team. He's actually absorbed a good amount of usage since his teammate Ron Holland has been injured. He's got some moves to get his own shot, a couple of like separation moves in his bag. He's got some good post moves in his game as well too. So that's something that's also encouraging to see, that he's going to be able to kind of get his own on the floor. And I think he demonstrated that in the Rising Stars games too. He is a subpar jump shooter. He has good mechanics, and the shot has been improving as the season has gone on for him. I mean, the season started slow because he was, in general, due to him being hurt, he hurt his ankle. But like I said, the shot has been improving. So that's going to be another swing skill here, is the shot improving for him. That's going to be a big one. My favorite landing spots for him, so similar to the needs that Memphis has in regards to Alexandre Sarr, I think Matas is another potential candidate to help fill this role for the front court needs of the Memphis Grizzlies. I also like the Toronto Raptors as a potential landing spot for him. I think he can potentially play a big role in their front court, maybe even alongside Scotty Barnes in like a small ball lineup too. Also, I think the Oklahoma City Thunder would be a good role for him, or a good landing spot for him, I should say. He could just basically be a Chet light version, copycat Chet, basically going to be everything that everybody wished Poku was going to be. Matas is going to for sure be that.
I love that, by the way.
For player archetypes, I'm looking at potentially Jonathan Isaac, also with shades of Lamar Odom. So for Jonathan Isaac, 3-point scoring as well as stocks. That's what we're looking at here, in the potential for Matas. But when I'm talking about Lamar Odom, like I mentioned earlier, somebody who's a tertiary or fourth option scoring wise for a team. Think about those Lakers back-to-back final runs on the Kobe and Pau team. They had Kobe, they had Pau, they had Derek Fisher, a couple other options. Lamar Odom, the sixth man of the year during that time frame, was the, you know, either third or fourth option at times. So I think sometimes Franz has gotten comparisons to, sometimes Matas has gotten comparisons to Franz Wagner, which I think is incorrect. Franz has the ball so much, he's basically just a jumbo point guard, but it's possible for a four-man to have a little bit of usage and handle the rock like a Lamar Odom, which is what I think Matas can potentially do. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Lamar, in 2008, 2009, he had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists per game, 2.3 stocks. So for those that don't know, stocks is steals plus blocks combined. So 2.3 there. So there's a good amount of potential here for Matas. I love his athleticism and his size. There's good defensive potential here too. The passing and dribbling is going to be much better than you'll see. Like if we're getting ratings for other big men in here with lesser talent than him, this passing and dribbling is going to be a lot lower. So, the 6 to 7 range for passing and dribbling for a guy of this size is great. The jump shot, NBA readiness, I put at a 7. He is still a little raw and has needs to work some things out, which is why I like Oklahoma City as a good landing spot for him. And I'm giving him an 8 in potential. So a tier behind Sarr for sure, as well as a couple of other guys that are in the top 3 in my opinion. So I'm looking at Matas's range somewhere between 5 and 12.
All right, so now we're going to go on to Matas's counterpart at the G League Ignite with Ron Holland, who is a small forward. He is a small forward with optimal size at 6'8". He weighs 200 pounds. I think he has some room to bulk up. He was kind of, I don't want to say lean, but he's a little bit wiry when we saw him in person. He's also on the younger side. I think he's only going to turn 19 at the start of Summer League, or maybe just after the start of Summer League. So he is one of the younger prospects. Ron Holland has a really great ability to rack up counting stats, as evident in his stat set. So Ron Holland is shooting pretty poorly, 44.5% from the field and 75% from the free throw line. He is struggling from 3 at 25%, but he is making 0.9 threes a game. On the bright side, though, is his counting stats. So if you love someone like Tari Eason or Cam Whitmore, who can really get stats in a quick turnaround, Ron Holland is going to be that type of guy for you. He's scoring 20.6 points per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, 3 assists, and an astonishing 2.5 steals a game, which is something to keep an eye on. He has 0.6 blocks, and he's a little bit turnover prone with 2.9 turnovers a game. A little bit of background information. Ron Holland was the number 2 ranked high school prospect that decided to forego his college eligibility playing for Texas. So he did choose the Ignite. And just recently, he was shut down for the rest of the season with a thumb injury, but he should be ready to go for the full pre-draft process. And one thing I really like about Ron Holland is that he has a very high motor. He has the tools to be a defensive stopper due to his high motor. With that being said, he does like to gamble a lot. When we did watch him live against the South Bay Lakers, but that also resulted in his high steals per game. So I know we're looking at Ron Holland through a fantasy perspective, and that's what's important, right? Sometimes, it's all about the stats versus, in real life, you kind of look for someone who's a little bit more disciplined and sound on defense, who doesn't really, jump on pump fakes, but that doesn't really matter here. We just need someone who can rack up the stats really fast. Another thing I love about Ron Holland is that he's an offensive initiator. He's a downhill presence, relying on his athleticism to get past defenders. Holland is someone who actively seeks his own. Andrew, I think you described it best. Ron Holland has a bloodlust mentality to score the basketball. And as a result, he does sometimes miss open reads to teammates in the fast break and even in the half court offense. He does have a shaky handle and a shot. So Ron Holland does have trouble creating space and breaking down defenders in isolation settings. And that also means he has a tendency to run into defenders and turn over the ball due to his shaky handle. Some of my favorite landing spots for Ron Holland is Portland. So as Portland rebuilds, I can see him transition in the starting spot at the 3 or the 4, replacing Kamara, or potentially Grant if Grant decides or if Grant decides to want out and play for a contender, or if Portland looks to just move him completely for a new, you know, for more draft assets, essentially. Um, we project Ron Holland to be drafted around the 5 to 10 range. And some player archetypes, as I mentioned earlier, is like an offensive Tari Eason, someone who does have a high motor, Cam Whitmore, and also RJ Barrett with some athleticism. Some of the astounding attributes of Ron Holland is his athleticism. He's hyper athletic, like we mentioned, has a high motor. So that's something that we really like. He does have ideal size, so we rate him there as an 8. Defense is an 8, so we didn't rate him too high, but we didn't want to rate him too low just because he's a little bit undisciplined on defense. But for fantasy purposes, this is promising that he does have the ability to rack up some steals. He needs to improve as a passer and a dribbler. His jump shot is a work in progress, and he does have a lot of potential.
All right, moving on to one of my favorite players in this draft class. We're going to be talking about Nikola Topic. So this is pretty much one of the only like pure point guards in this class. I mean, there's going to be a couple of other ones like Tyler Kolek at the end of the draft, but one with an extremely high ceiling as a point guard, that's going to be Nikola Topic. So he is 6'6". We're talking about an elite jumbo playmaker, weighs 200 pounds. So he's got some great size to him. He's also one of the youngest players in this draft too. He's actually a month younger than Holland, who we were just talking about. So on draft day, I think he is going to be one of the younger players on this list. So his key selling point as well as key talent is attacking the paint and getting into the paint at will. He is a triple-double threat. Like I said, passing is the best part of his game. He has creative finishes as well as the ability to finish through contact at the rim. This is due to having great balance as well as a great center of gravity. And I think he has some very underrated strength too. He has great touch around the rim and in the paint. As he gets going, as he starts playing downhill and attacking the rim, he can really start to suck in the defense, which opens kickout opportunities for him, for shooters to score. So something like this in regards to this play style is going to be much more effective in the NBA when he is surrounded by much better shooters. Topic is somebody who's going to be able to play alongside a high usage star pretty easily. And I think he's going to be fully unlocked with an elite pick and roll partner. So hint here, in regards to one of his favorite landing spots for me, I think he should go to the San Antonio Spurs. I think if he does go to the San Antonio Spurs, people might potentially look at him as the #1 overall dynasty asset in this draft just because of the amazing potential fit on that team. He is exactly what they need. We'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a minute here. So let's just talk more about what Topic is doing for Mega Basket. Mega Basket, although some might talk about the league itself as not having, not having comparable NBA defense, things like that, where players coming from this league might have a tough transition. But we need to go over some of the players that have come from Mega Basket. Despite the league itself not having the best credibility, this specific team within this league does have a good amount of credibility. They have produced Nikola Jokic, Nikola Jovic, Goga Bitadze, Ivica Zubac, Vasilij Micic has played here, Vlatko Cancar has played here, Marko Simonovic has played here. A good amount of NBA talent has played for this Mega Basket team. So being one of the leaders in the league in scoring as well as assists is definitely an extremely, extremely impressive development that we like to see. So he has great creativity and flair to his game. He also has a great stop and go type of game when he's penetrating towards the basket. I think he can develop an arsenal of clever moves to get into the paint like someone like a Manu Ginobili did. He will need this arsenal of moves and craftiness to find space at the NBA level. This is someone that you want to see focus on the fundamentals such as footwork, which will improve his game even more, especially in the paint. Just look at what Jaime Jaquez is able to create for himself in the NBA with just craftiness and footwork alone. It looks like he's going to be a pretty weak three-point shooter. It seems like stretching the floor is not going to be a big part of his game. At least he does have a high field goal percentage. Obviously, like I said, he pretty much lives in the paint. One thing I will note from watching film on him is in regards to his shooting mechanics, the literal jumping part of his jump shot. Instead of jumping straight up and down vertically on his jump shot, he tends to leap forward while shooting, especially on threes. So his feet are often landing well inside the 3-point arc after starting his jump shot out of the 3-point arc. So this is obviously something that needs to be addressed. I mean, yeah, you can have a little bit of forward movement in a jump shot, but this dude is like jumping 2 or 3 steps forward with his jump shots, which is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And due to that forward motion on his jump shot, he has a very flat arc to his jump shot too. He seems to also shoot a little bit of in front of his face. So obviously there's not a very soft touch coming off the rim for him when he's shooting from far away. All of his soft touch is more so when he's in the paint area with his floater game, craftiness around the rim, learning how to navigate through the bigs as well too. So he has to get crafty to create separation at the next level, or at this level for himself too, with jab steps, sweeps, fakes. He has a great stop and go game, similar to someone like an Austin Reeves, who also does not have an explosive first step and needs to rely on craftiness and basketball IQ to get to his spots. So the strength, balance, and basketball IQ are also similar to Reeves as well. So like I mentioned, one of my favorite landing spots is San Antonio. I just think this guy is destined to compete with one of the Jones brothers for point guard minutes, because my other favorite landing spot is the Washington Wizards. I mean, this team has pretty much needs across the board. I mean, there's not really a position you can say that Washington doesn't need. So I think Topic also would be a great fit for the Wizards too. But again, in regards to someone that's a great candidate for being the number one asset in this 2024 draft class from a dynasty basketball perspective, I think Topic is probably the strongest candidate to be that if he lands in San Antonio. His projected draft range is from either the first pick, anywhere between there, or pick number 5. So before we get into his prospect ratings, one thing I want to talk about here too is that if he does land on the San Antonio Spurs, he can get lessons as well as tutelage from Manu Ginobili himself if the Spurs land him. So he obviously still does have a role within the team. We've seen videos of him interacting with Victor Wembanyama as well as other players. Sixth man of the year, Manu Ginobili averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, for those of you who are not too familiar with him. So at the best possible turnout for Topic, that's something we might be seeing for him, somewhere near 20 points per game, and then 4 or more assists per game. Maybe something more realistic might be like what Austin Reeves is doing, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. But I think Topic is someone that has very high potential. We did give him a 9 potential rating. He's the one of probably only 3 prospects in his class that are going to get a 9 potential rating. He also gets 9 ratings on his passing and dribbling. His size is great for the position that he plays too. Not great ratings in regards to his athleticism and defense. Again, like I mentioned, he has to focus on his craftiness to make things work for him. He can't really rely on athleticism. The jump shot's not going to get a great rating either, but he is someone that I also see as being NBA ready, who's probably going to hit the ground running and doesn't need much time to get going.
All right, so now for the next 2 prospects, we're going to dabble into some Frenchies. So for me, I'll be going over Zaccharie Risacher. I hope I pronounced that right. So Risacher is a small forward playing for JL Borg. So JL Borg is in the same league as Metropolitans 92, where Victor Wembanyama has played recently. So it is a pretty competitive league. It's not a pretty competitive league. It's not the Euro League, but they still produce some pretty high level talent. Even look at the likes of Bilal Coulibaly. So Risacher has ideal size at 6'9". He might actually be 6'10". He looks pretty tall in the highlight clips and watching him play. He weighs 204 pounds, and he is, I want to say, a true freshman, being born in 2005. Risacher is a French prospect that is really a seamless fit across all teams projected in the top of the lottery. So there are a lot of cases for him to be taken number 1, even over, per se, Alex Sarr, and my personal favorite prospect, and Nikola Topic, Andrew's favorite prospect in the draft, just because he's a universally cleaner fit. Risacher has a pretty great stat set. He's an efficient shooter, soaring at 56.6% from the field. A little bit concerning, he has a low free throw percentage for being a great shooter, which is a bit of a red flag because free throw does translate overall throughout the career. He is making 1.9 threes per game, 13.1 points. He is a little bit limited in the peripheral stats, as you can see with his rebounding, only averaging 3.6 rebounds per game and 1.1 assists. He is averaging 0.8 steals and 0.4 blocks and 1.7 turnovers. So Risacher is, like I mentioned, has great size for a 3-and-D wing. His calling card is really his ability to stretch the floor. Across 3 years playing in the JL Borg team in that league, he is a 43% career shooter from the 3-point line. Risacher is very mobile and long enough to switch and defend positions from 2 to 4, maybe possibly 5 as he bulks up. He has potential to play small ball 5, similar to Matas Buzelis. He does have pretty broad shoulders, so I think he can fill in at about 220 pounds. One thing I keep hearing about Risacher is that he has a real good tendency to crash the offensive glass for second chance opportunities, which shows that he's very proactive on the court. Another calling card for him is that he's very fundamentally sound. He has the propensity to really make the right reads. He's not a ball stopper. He's someone who doesn't hold the ball, and he runs through the flow of the offense, taking shots that are open for him, never really forcing things, as he plays well as an off-ball cutter. And he's also a mobile threat in transition with some very underrated athleticism. And of course, his calling card is his spot-up shooting. However, he is very limited as a self-creator at the moment. Can't really break down defenders in isolation. So if he's not, spotting up, he's really like pump faking it, hitting a sidestep, or doing a one dribble pull up. He does struggle to score in traffic, but I believe as he bulks up, he will get a little bit better. In terms of that, I like to see a comparison with Jabari Smith Jr., who was not the best at the rim finisher, but he's getting better as he is getting assimilated into the NBA and bulking up. I can see a similar path for Risacher. All right, so for Risacher, some of my favorite landing spots are one, the Pistons. Let's be honest, nobody in Detroit can shoot the ball at the moment besides Fontecchio, and he's not really a long-term piece to the Detroit puzzle. Fontecchio has been shown some pretty good moments and is one of the hotter pickups in redraft leagues. So imagine Risacher sliding in over there and handling those 3-point duties. He can also slide in at the 3 to 4 spot next to Sarr in the front court and really cause havoc on defense with their length and switchability. And also look at Cade. So he can unlock Cade as the real primary engine of the offense because he can space the floor and open up driving lanes in the paint, which is an area that Cade struggles with, getting open space and contact and scoring around the rim. And overall, he really fits and addresses the Detroit Pistons' immediate and long-term needs. Another fit I really like with Risacher is Charlotte. He can replace Cody Martin as their starting small forward. And just imagine a lineup with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Risacher, and Miles Bridges, maybe, and Mark Williams. And that starting 5 would really pose an impressive size advantage and switchability advantage. So essentially, if they keep Miles Bridges and the others, there are, I think, everyone's around 6'7" and above, and everyone else can really stretch the floor. And Mark Williams, and he doesn't really need to be the primary scoring option. He can work alongside LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller and get open shots based off their own gravity. Some player archetypes are OG Anunoby and Michael Porter Jr. Let's get into the scorecard. Risacher does have underrated athleticism, so I do give him an 8. He has very ideal size. I think he can grow up to 6'11", and he could be a real hybrid at the power forward spot and the small forward spot. He also has great defensive tools as well. He needs to really improve as a passer. He's just making very fundamental reads, although very good reads, nothing overly impressive as a primary creator. He needs to improve as a dribbler. He doesn't really take many dribbles outside of, outside of being in transition, driving to the basket. Uh, his jump shot is his calling card, as I mentioned, so we give him a 9 there. I think he can be a real plug and play guy. So he is kind of more on the NBA ready side compared to the other freshmen, and he does have solid potential. So I do give him an 8, and I think he can be a great asset within the top 5 of your rookie drafts.
That's going to bring us to our last prospect, which is Tidjane Salaun. So, fun fact for you, Tidjane Salaun and Nikola Topic have the exact same birthday, August 10th, 2005. Both of these prospects are still going to be 18 years old after drafted and while playing in the NBA Summer League. So both of these boys are not going to turn 19 years of age until the league already gets underway in preseason and regular season. Diving into Tidjane Salaun, this is somebody who has come onto the radar pretty recently. Early mock drafts and draft boards didn't really have much information about this guy. And I think a reason for that is that he is not playing in the same French league as where Wemby came from or as Risacher came from. He is playing in a lower tier division in France in an under 21s league. So that could be a big reason why he's not as well known. So biggest points to note here for Salaun: he is an explosive athlete. Hustle play is probably one of the better pieces or talking points to his game right now. He's a great help defender. He's excellent at deflecting passes and shots as a help defender, thanks to having explosive athleticism. His actual on-ball defense has a lot of room for improvement as he makes many questionable decisions when guarding somebody that has the ball. As does actually his ability with the ball too. When he's a ball handler, he does have a lot of mistakes in regards to forcing passes and losing control of his handle too. So his off-ball movement on offense is great. He's constantly moving around the perimeter to get an open shot. He's not going to just stand in the corner, but when he has the ball, like I mentioned, he is quite turnover prone. So it is kind of an odd case here where he's very good as an off-ball defender and moving around without the ball, but not very good as an on-ball defender as well as handling the ball itself. He has a good three-point shot. So his three-point shot, as well as just his improvement in three-point shooting, is a huge reason why he has come onto the NBA radar. Obviously, because he's already 6'9", over 200 pounds, and a great athlete. But the fact that the three-point percentage is above 35% and trending upwards is why he's now in a first-round discussion. So there is a smooth shooting stroke. So if I was a shooting coach and I saw this mechanics here, I would be confident that I'd be able to work with this. He is able to slash to the basket when defenders start to respect the shot and close out on him. Like I mentioned, he is an explosive athlete. So the big swing skill is three-point shooting. Like I said, there's been a massive improvement for him for that this season. And then also too, moving into some cons for him here, we're talking, when I mentioned he has some limitations in regards to on-ball defense as well as handling the ball, this is due to a limited basketball IQ and overall feel for the game. He's an extremely raw prospect. This is not somebody who we expect to hit the ground running and contribute in the NBA immediately. He also has a poor shooting touch in and around inside the perimeter and around the paint. So pretty much, if it's not going to be a dunk or a three-pointer, it's going to be a rough attempt for him. The limited IQ with the ball in his hands and when guarding the ball handler are pretty big red flags. So he can really use some ironing out to his game. The shooting touch is a big concern. He misses layups from time to time and can struggle with shots in the paint. A mid-range or floater game seems to be out of the question for Salaun. Even some of his threes are hitting hard off the back of the rim or not even hitting the rim at all. So some of my favorite landing spots for him would be the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Orlando Magic, or the New Orleans Pelicans. So these three teams will either in this draft grab a win now role player to fit their squad, which I honestly suggest they all do because this is the perfect draft to do that, or they're going to get a raw development piece to stash in the G League and see what happens in year 2 or year 3. Salaun would be a great one of those options for either of the three teams below should they decide to play the long game. Especially OKC or Orlando, I think would be the most ideal landing spots for him. I project his draft range to be somewhere around 7 to 15. I would not be shocked if he fell outside of the lottery. What we're looking at comparison-wise, we're really just looking at, prototypical 3-and-D wing defenders. Somebody like maybe like at best case scenario here, Jay Crowder in his prime, Dorian Finney-Smith. If it all hits, that's what we're going to be looking at here. So a likely stat set. So talk about like Jay Crowder in his prime, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. I think maybe like Dorian Finney-Smith in his 4th year, 9 points, 6 rebounds, 1 steal, 1.1 stocks per game, 1.7 3-pointers, maybe might be a little bit more likely as like, his ceiling. These types of players though are still highly sought after. Brooklyn wanted 2 first-round picks for Finney-Smith. Not that that's the right price to ask for, but it still shows how hard it is to find a good 3-and-D player. So developing one in-house is a huge win for any team. So jumping into the ratings here, athleticism is the biggest selling point. Size and defense, passing and dribbling leaves a lot of room to be desired, but there's a good amount of 3-and-D wings in the NBA who aren't really asked to pass or dribble and can still find good minutes. The jump shot is still a work in progress, but again, for someone of this size, if the jump shot does develop well, this could be a huge win for whoever drafts him. Of the prospects we covered today, he is the least NBA ready out of all of them, and I think he's also having the least potential out of all the ones that we covered today too. So that concludes the prospect coverage for today. Mitch, did you have any last comments on the prospects that we covered or the 2024 draft class?
Yeah, so some closing thoughts. This draft class is essentially kind of forming into its own tier of a top 4. So we did cover 3 of them, Alex Sarr, Nikola Topic, and Risacher, but there is one other guy or prospect playing at Colorado
My boy.
Andrew's boy, Cody Williams, the brother of Jalen Williams from the OKC Thunder, J-Dub, not J-Will, by the way, who is a potential number 1 pick who we will be covering in the next podcast. So with that being said, it's kind of fun having so much ambiguity around this draft class. It's every draft junkie's dream, right? Being able to say you hit on that number 1 prospect that you were so high on when there is no consensus number 1 pick. And that's part of the fun in this draft and really identifying that potential superstar. So think 2013 with Giannis Antetokounmpo. There was no real consensus number 1 player at the top. Hell, Anthony Bennett went number 1 and no one projected him to be a top 5 pick, really. He just kind of came out of nowhere. There could be a lot of madness in this draft. So what I would do personally from a dynasty perspective is to accumulate those mid to late lottery picks from the 7 to 14 range, because in reality, you can get them for pretty cheap and they could have a higher return of investment over those 1 to 6 players picked in the 1 to 6 range. Andrew, any thoughts?
Couldn't have said it better myself, friend. I definitely agree. Some guys that are going to fall to the 7 to 14 range might come out of nowhere. We'll be looking back on it, 5 years later saying, how did he go that low? Look how good this player is now. So there's going to be in this draft class a few swings and misses, a few big swings and misses more than likely, but there's also going to be a couple of gems lower down in the class that we're all going to be surprised about how far they fell. So that's going to do it for us today. Again, this is part 1 of our prospect series. So part 2 covering NCAA prospects is going to be coming a little bit closer towards March Madness. So we're we're going to be bringing you another 6 prospects for that one. Thank you for tuning in today. If you like this episode, please be sure to smash that like button, hit the notification bell to be notified when our NCAA prospect coverage video comes out. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time.